Bands that change or replace members often do so at their potential peril when it comes to their most passionate and ardent fans. But what would happen if your favorite band no longer had any of its original members, or instead of performing at live in-person venues, confined their performances to the virtual and digital world of the metaverse? Keep listening to this episode that considers some of the more existential questions around the question, what is a band?
Podcast starts now.
I recently read some comments from a few musicians in what turned out to be a pretty eclectic sampling of bands that included Kiss, Devo, and Kraftwerk. And the topic was essentially, what is a band? More to the point, can a band continue without any of its original members? Does a band exist independent and separate from the individual members? Which takes us to the big question, do fans have to say farewell when one, more, or all of the original members pass on or retire? Can that band exist in another form? Well, musicians from the earlier referenced bands and several more that I've since read comments from seem to think that the answer is an unequivocal yes. Maybe with different band members, maybe, as one group rep explained, in a virtual manner, which isn't so far-fetched, given the hugely expanding metaverse, with the likes of Sotheby's and Facebook diving in enthusiastically, esports and e-gaming already populating, and the increase of NFTs throughout this growing virtual world. Why not digital and virtual renditions of bands that, in person, have chosen to hang up the hat, or at least hang it up partially? So aside from the questions of should this happen, which we'll get into a little bit later, there's, at least for now, two main versions of assemblies of musicians surpassing their original physical membership. One is entirely new members, like a Blue Man Group or a phony Beatlemania. Kind of the professionalization of tribute bands, sort of. The other is the digital version, where at least some original members still apply their craft, but the gigs and other performances are virtual in some way. They could be holographic, or rendered for a metaverse. Scary? Make no mistake, many musicians out there are theorizing and conceptualizing around such ideas. This, of course, moves way beyond replacing original members, something that many bands have done and will continue to do, and many bands whose fans vehemently scream they won't, but very well end up doing. I mentioned Kiss and Devo at the outset. Fleetwood Mac has seen plenty of versions of itself. Led Zeppelin put on an amazing show at the London O a decade ago with a different drummer, albeit a band family member. As intense as Rush fans can be, I should know, I am one, and how much passion swirls around that holy trinity, it's useful sometimes to remind ourselves that the highly beloved and incredibly respected Neil Peart was not the first drummer for Rush. Who knows? He might not be the last. Blasphemy? Disrespectful? No doubt some of you will think so, which appropriately segues to the normative question of should this happen? Well, one could respond with, why not? Let's take the first scenario of a band existing beyond its original members. If the original members of an older band merely perform a constant output of best-ofs without any new studio material, then why would it necessarily matter who is playing it? As long as they fit the role, have the chops, and give the fans what they want. Hell, most fans only want the best-ofs and the classics anyway, and they're merely clapping politely when newer material is played. They want the stuff they know and love. I wouldn't be surprised if, 20 years from now, Kiss is still performing to screaming audiences, but without any original members. The second scenario looks to a very real, near-future digital version of today's bands. Live from the metaverse, where you can gamble in a casino, walk into an art gallery with options to purchase, and then enjoy a performance by your favorite band without even moving an inch from your seat. A final scenario considers a new person, interacting and contributing creatively. Someone who inevitably brings a new ingredient to the band, helping produce a new chemistry and allowing fans to experience something similar but different. Fans are deeply divided on this, but even those bands whose members have hung up their hats, moved into official retirement, come on. Playing music, interacting creatively with fans, performing live, at least in some capacity. That's a bug that stings deep and it never goes away. And that's why when it comes to musicians, bands, and performing, you can never say never. Visit stephenchristiansen.ca for more episodes of Before, Behind, and Between. This podcast is available on all streaming platforms and podcast apps, including Anchor, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I'm Stephen Christiansen. Thanks for listening.
Production of Stephen Christensen. Podcast complete.